Plant Pioneers episode 4. Yeah, episode 4. We're going to be looking at a number of plants today, and I'm really happy to see all these little insects and flying around me, because it really speaks to maybe the changes that we've been able to make happen because we're all staying home. And we're all going in our backyards and looking at plants and exploring our interests. But worldwide, insects are on the extinction lists, and they are saying that about 60% of the world insects have now gone extinct worldwide, not just here in the U.S. In the U.S., it's different in every region. So to see these insects today is a very unusual thing for the last few years. So if I'm doing this, I'm not annoyed. I just don't want them coming in my eyes. Let's talk about a plant that is a very stately plant that has been in everybody's awareness, that has been in backyards and roadsides and highway roads, and wherever we look, we often see this plant, summer and winter. In the winter, they're dead, but they're still very present, and that's mullein. We're going to talk about two types of mullein today. I just happen to be lucky to have two types in my garden. One because I put the second type there. But let's look at the local mullein that we have in this area. And here we have is our local mullein, Verbascum thapsus. Now I'll get out of the sun so you can get a good look at mullein's hairy leaves. Very fine hairs, very, very fine, almost like a velvet type of hair. Very strong leaves, but yet very delicate. And then a strong center vein, also very, very hairy. Verbascum thapsus. It's in the figwort family. It's a biennial, meaning that in their first year, they're a rosette shape. And then in their second year, and this one looks just like a first year, but I know this plant is a second year because it's starting to blossom upwards right here. So in their second year, they start to develop a center stalk that will go all the way up for possibly 6 to 8 feet tall, and develop flowers and seeds and all types of wonderful things. But what we're looking at here is mullein, our local mullein, in the plant's for the second year, going into the plant's second year. What does a first year look like? Again, just like this plant, but the plant does not do any kind of center growth until next year. So mullein is a biennial, a 2-year plant. Now let's move over here and look at another type of mullein, also called verbascum, but this one is huge, and the name for this plant, mullein plant, is Verbascum olympium. Looks very similar, doesn't it? Still has hairy leaves. Still has a very strong center vein with many lateral veins to the side, just as the other mullein, the local mullein, has. Very, very little difference at this point. Greek mullein is its common name. Also in the figwort family. Also a biennial. But I must say, this mullein has fooled me quite often. This mullein has gone from being a biennial, meaning going and being a rosette for 3 years, and in its 4th year flowering for me. What's that about? I don't know. And then last year I had a first year Greek mullein, and the plant went into flower. It didn't even go into its second year. It just stayed in its first year. It flowered and did everything it would have done if it was 2 years old. So the Greek mullein plays around, but as regularly, Greek mullein will flower in the second year. What's the difference between the two? So we're lucky right here. I'm going to have Lacey take a closer look, and we can look and have a good view of the local mullein and the Greek mullein that I put in. You can see the difference, and there's the singular main difference. Let's see if we could get their leaf in the same direction, because I don't want to pull their leaf out for nothing. And you can see that the Greek mullein has a much larger, broader leaf, broader and pointier. There is a very subtle difference right now. In the summer, when we look at these two different mulleins, we're going to notice a big difference, and that'll make it very clear. Let's talk about some of the goodness that mullein offers us. One of the parts that we're all very familiar with, I think, and use right now are the leaves of mullein. And traditionally, even folk-wise, traditionally, mullein leaf has been used for the lungs. And if we look at what the leaf looks like on their back part, this very much looks like how lung tissue might have those very extensive networking where we would take in the oxygen transfer. But in any case, mullein leaf is a fabulous bronchodilator. It's a lung anti-inflammatory, and it's also a nice, gentle expectorant. As a tea or as a tincture. And it can be used for long periods of time, because the plant comes with, as far as I know, no side effects and no contraindications. Now let's look at another part of the plant that we have that we can still use at this time of the year. So we see that mullein is still very much a rosette. So that means that the energy from the roots are still very predominantly in the plant's roots. So we could use, like I said, we could use the leaves for the lungs as a tea for the lung, for it to be an expectorant, but we could also use mullein's roots. Mullein root in the plant's first year, which would be harvested in the fall, or the plant's second year, as we have here, harvested in the spring. However, once we harvest those roots, we no longer have use of the mullein plant's leaves. So if you harvest the roots, do save the leaves, because then the leaves are going to be beneficial as a dried tea. So what do we use the roots for? We could use the roots fresh, we could use the roots dried as in a tea, or we could use the roots in an extract. And the roots are known as like an anodyne, a pain reliever, also known as maybe like a nervine. And the nervine would be something that would help calm inflammation. Where would that inflammation be calming? That would be calming to the muscles. It would be calming to some nerve endings. So it's usually used for fibromyalgia and chronic pain. And it's a gentle pain reliever, so it's not something that we have to worry about with other pain relievers. but it's not a strong pain reliever, but it's really good for fibromyalgia. It's a key ingredient that we often use in pain remedies for people with fibromyalgia-like pain. Come this summer, we're going to talk more about the other parts of mullein that can be used, but right now these are the two parts that can be used in the spring for a second year plant or for a first year plant in the fall. But always remember, every time you use that root, you're not going to have any more plants. So do be judicious at not over harvesting and leaving some plants for their future. And a great thing about mullein, there are no poisonous lookalikes. However, due to the inexperienced eye, when Greek mullein is small, such as this plant over here, it could look and does look like a foxglove. Foxglove is deadly. Very quickly, it doesn't take long. Foxglove leaf does not take long to stop your heart. So, no, mullein does not have any poisonous lookalikes, but if mullein is presenting like this and is small and tiny, you want to make sure it's not foxglove. You want to make sure you get someone that knows how to ID and ensure that it's not foxglove before you go to harvest it. Look who we have here. We have the most fabulous of deep root medicine that there is here, at least on the land that we take care of. And here we're looking at the plant, and this plant's probably the plant's first year. It could be a second year plant, but we're looking at burdock. Arctium lapa. It is a composite, also known as aster family plant. By the way, aster family plants are the most numerous in the world. Burdock is the plant that everyone gets annoyed at in the fall when they're walking through the fields and all of a sudden they get these burrs in their hair or burrs on their coat or in their on their hands or on their skin, and the burrs go up your arms and into the skin and make you itch, but that's about all they do. Burdock, very medicinal plant, very edible plant. But let me just describe what they look like in their first and their second year. Remember, plants that live for 2 years are biennials, and burdock is one of those type of plants. It stays in a rosette. The first year, the leaves will get really big and stay close to the ground and make a big floret possibly if we don't weed whack them down. But if this plant is a second year plant, then the plant will grow into a very large, stately, large-leaved plant and seed out by the time fall comes. What do we use burdock for? We use burdock for a lot of different things. We use the plant for food, and we use the plant for medicine. What parts are edible for food? The parts that are edible for food are burdock's roots, which are in the ground now. Why am I not showing you the roots? Because I'm not ready to use them, so I don't want to dig them up for nothing. The roots are usually very a center root, a strong center root, maybe sometimes a little bit of tiny smaller roots to the side, but mostly you're going to have a large strong center root. The root is tending to pull up nutrients for our garden, and all around our garden where the roots are pulling up all the nutrients that are deep in the soil. So burdock does serve a purpose for our general garden too. So it's no need to weed out the burdocks as we're so used to doing. So the roots are edible. They're best cooked You can eat the roots raw, but they're tough and they're gnarly. And you can also you can boil the roots. You could stir fry the roots. You can julienne the roots and mix them with other vegetables, and you can cook the roots up where you mash them and make them part of a stuffing. And one of the best stuffings I love to use burdock roots for is stuffing artichokes. If you like to make stuffed artichokes, burdock root just adds to that artichoke flavor. By the time June comes, we're going to look at burdock, what we can actually do with their center stalk when the plant is now growing into the second stage that it offers us in June. Usually it's after a great rain that I'll show you how to use that center stalk. Now, the roots are edible as a food, but the roots are also fabulous as a medicine, herbal medicine, a botanical medicine. And usually what these roots are used for are liver detoxification, as well as lymph system detoxification. And the easiest and most simplest way to do that would be to take the roots, dry the roots, cut up the roots, dry them, and make them into have a tea with them. And usually just a nice heaping teaspoon into 8 ounces of water that is simmered in for about 20 or 30 minutes is a nice way to do that. And then it could be drunk 2 to 3 times a day, especially in the spring, because the springtime is a time of the year where we like to detox our liver anyway. So burdock is a really big liver detoxifier. Old time name for burdock root is a blood cleanser. So what that means is that is a detoxifier. And after a long winter and we're kind of indoors, we're not very active, we eat heavy foods, we eat greasy foods, we want to stay warm. That's one of the reasons why we do that. Come spring, this is a great eliminator. And an eliminator, not where it's going to make you run to the bathroom and move your bowels and you have to stay by the toilet. No, just a gentle eliminator that will help you just gently detox. Really important, burdock does seem to have 2 poisonous lookalikes. One poisonous lookalike I don't grow on my land because I don't want anyone to make a mistake, and that's foxglove. So burdock leaf, the young leaf, not necessarily this leaf, which is not a real young leaf, but it's an older leaf, but possibly one of these leaves here that we were looking at before does look like foxglove. So really be absolutely sure that you're harvesting burdock root and not foxglove root. Do that with someone that knows. Get a good ID book too. The other plant that burdock looks like, and I'm going to set both of the leaves out here on the ground, burdock leaf. Notice the leaf structure. It has center stem. We'll turn it over, and as that strong center stem goes straight up the center, and then we have sporadic lateral veins that are alternating. You can see they're not quite at the same place. They're not really opposite at all. Opposite is this. They're alternating. The leaves are curly at the edges, wavy at the edges. The leaf is hairy. You can see the hair on the stem as well as the underside of the leaf. We turn the burdock over, and the leaf is dull looking, and if you look real close, it even has not rough, but a leathery nature to the leaf. Now, what am I concerned about here? I'm concerned that we will misidentify a burdock leaf if we're too overly excited and not paying attention, and we'll look at and harvest rhubarb leaf. And here we have, next to burdock, we have a rhubarb leaf. Now, a lot of people who are gardeners well know burdock and rhubarb. And you might be saying, huh? How could you misidentify that? I have seen that. And yes, rhubarb stem is very edible, but the leaf is so high in oxalic acid, it could shut down our kidneys. Very, very toxic. Very, very toxic leaf. We never use the leaf in rhubarb. We always use the stem in rhubarb, and that's it. So let's turn this leaf over, the rhubarb leaf, and compare it to burdock leaf. And notice how rhubarb's stem is very different from burdock's, and no matter how old burdock stems will get, burdock stems will always have this type of patterning, hairy. Rhubarb is bald. Burdock might have a reddish coloring as the stem gets older and as the leaf gets bigger. It'll always be hairy. Rhubarb will always be bald. But notice how that center stem on the rhubarb also splits right at the place where the leaf begins. It splits off into two lateral strong veins, opposite from one another. Center strong one, two laterals not so strong. Oh, almost as strong, yeah. And as the plant gets bigger, this happens consistently throughout the plant. As a matter of fact, you might even get another strong vein. And so you'll have all the veins, the strong veins, coming right from rhubarb's stem. In burdock, there is always only a strong center stem, and it's always hairy. That should be the biggest indicator. No hair, hair. They do have a lot of similarities, though color differences, and yes, definitely stem differences. I would have never have thought these two would be confused, but you know, they are. So there we have it. Talked about mullein, two types of mullein that we have in this area, and burdock, and how to use them both as food and helpful nutritional ways. And of course, when in doubt, leave it out. If you're not sure you are looking at mullein, or if you're not sure you're looking at burdock, do bring somebody along with you, or bring the plant with you and ask somebody if you ID'd properly, because it's always so important to ID safely. And next week, we're going to talk everything dandelion. And I look forward to that because we have so much to say, and dandelion is our primary food for upstate New York, or at least she should be. See you next week.